Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And cat that I've been waiting to talk to for a long time, a rhythmatist who started his career in the blues clubs of Los Angeles, working the groove in front of real peeps who were coming out in support of music because music had a very, very different significance in our culture. And he learned to play all musics behind many different leaders, ultimately culminating in the band War. And it's just such an honor. Harold Brown, welcome to the Jake.
Well, it seemed like you did your homework.
Hey, man, I've been talking to cats for 6 years now. So I haven't.
Well, I thought you were going to say like 60, 70 years.
I am merely a 39-year-old journalist searching for truth.
Oh, you say, as we say, you're still a baby.
Total baby, man. But Harold, this is really important. I wanted you to talk a little bit about growing up, the how you learned to use the top of the trap set and how you learned to keep time on the cymbals. Because today when I go see live music, people are just pounding those double bass drums and it's like machine gun fire. And when I listen to when I listen to you play, you're dancing on the cymbals, man. And I just want you to talk about that.
Okay, well, Jake, first of all, I am a very blessed person at 71 and a musician. As I sit here speaking to you and your fans, I can look out my condo window and I can see over at First Lutheran in Long Beach, where I first got that 5 minutes where I learned how to play drums. I can see it as I talk to you. I get chills. I see it in my eyes. And I found out we were the first black family in the first 100-year period of the First Lutheran Church in Long Beach, California. And I was about 1956. I'm sitting in the back. Kenneth Hines Sr. said, "Who want to learn to play a snare drum?" And I said, "Me." He showed me how to hold a pair of drumsticks and a quarter note. Well, right now, as you and I speak, I can see it. And I've got my office right across from where I did my very first concert there. And I'm back in the same neighborhood where everything happened. To answer the question, how I got these grooves, when I was coming up, we didn't have what they call race music. You'd listen to Fox News, Big Fats and stuff. They would have Texas Tiny was his name, was the DJ at the time. And when I listened to the radio, I would hear Johnny Otis, Big Mama Thornton, Johnny Cash. I would hear Fats Domino. I was hearing all kinds of music. So whenever I would hear and then if I had a hammer, what was his name? I can't think of Trini Lopez. I'd hear his drummer playing a pattern he played on a cymbal. Ta-ting, kaka, kinky, kika, ting, kaka. I said, whoa, I like that. I got a chance a few years back to thank Trini Lopez for that song. But when I was coming up and going into these blues clubs, actually I started learning a lot of rhythms, Latin rhythms, and those sounds by going over sneaking into the clubs over in Tijuana.
Wow.
Go over there and go to the clubs and where they had the shake dancers and the belly dancers, and they played a lot of cowbell patterns and a lot of those, Afro-Cuban Latin rhythms on top. So I'm listening, yeah. That's why when I was a kid, coming up playing in South Los Angeles, Long Beach and stuff, all the shake dancers and stuff wanted me to play the drums behind them.
You could make them. It was dance music, and
it was dance music, right?
But the other thing that you're talking about is that the music came out of the community, because you're looking across.
Right.
Okay, I want you to talk about that. How music is built how it was built in the community, because we don't know our neighbors anymore.
No, we don't, because everybody started moving to the suburbs, and they have their own little backyard, their own little swimming pool, their own little barbecue, and then their own little parking in the back. No. When we were coming up here in Long Beach, and I'm still in Long Beach, oh, yeah, you never forget where you come from, walking the same streets, I would go by, and I might on a Sunday hear a gospel church. I remember the first rhythm I heard was down on Anaheim in California. I'd drive by there, and I drove by the other day, and I'd hear that, ching taka ting taka ting taka tika, ting taka ting taka ting taka tika, and the old preacher would run around and start blowing his trombone, plop 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 plop, and all the sisters, everybody be beating on their tambourines. My mother played piano in the church for a little bit. He would take outside, come through the back door, and everybody'd be dancing. And then up on Anaheim and Orange and where me and Howard met, the Cozy Tavern, it wasn't unusual to go by beer bars and hear music coming out of the local beer bars, hearing music coming out of the local churches. So you was inundated. I remember when I was a kid, I met Big Mama Thornton. She had a special thing for me. I didn't realize until years later that Big Mama Thornton, for those folks out there that don't know who she is, she did "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog," and then Elvis Presley did the song.
Right.
And she told me how she wrote that song. She wrote it on a paper sack. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. But anyway, this particular evening, I was up on Western and Manchester. She had a club called The Web. And I went up to her, and my father drove up there, and I got out, and she says, "Come on with me, boy. Ain't nobody gonna bother you." And I was just a kid. I was about 13, 14 years old, and she took me through a club. She had a big overalls on. She sashayed. We went in the back. Now, I remember she showed me a .22 pistol. I was with her at night when it came on the radio that Johnny Ace, Pledging My Love, was supposed to have shot himself in the head playing Russian roulette. I found out from Taj Mahal, and then later on researched it the last few years, that a lot of people think she shot him. So that meant she was using me as an alibi. Woo!
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I grew up in it, And then I'll never forget meeting Sam Cooke. We was up in South Los Angeles off of, over on Main Street, north of El Segundo. And it was this club that we used to play, Moore's Swing Club. Because me, Howard, and there was probably, we were called right then we started calling ourselves the Creators. And we were just kids, and it'd be like a Monday night, Tuesday night, and we'd be in a bar. It was Moore's Swing Club. I'll never forget when Sam Cooke came in that evening. He sat over by the bar. It was empty. And we was up on the stage playing, and asked Mr. Moore, could he introduce himself to us? And then he introduced himself to us. Yeah. This is true stuff, for real. I go out, last time I seen him, he was getting into his new XK Jaguar. Sam Cooke. It was sitting over a vacant lot. I drove by there not long ago, maybe about 6-7 months ago, by there, and that lot is still over. Now it's fenced up, but where was that big poster sign and stuff? But he had his XKE parked there. It was purple. It was metallic, the special metallic painting. That was the last time I seen him, and it wasn't long after that where, he got killed over there on Figueroa, which is not too far from there.
He was killed?
Yeah.
Wow, this is unbelievable. Harold, we're talking to a legendary timekeeper in the same conversation as Jabbo Starks and Clyde Stubblefield. And I wanted you to those cats both came out of the Sanctified Church, and they learned there was no trap set. It was tambourines, shakers, and the clapping.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
So basically, I was talking about Jabbo Starks and Clyde Stubblefield, James Brown's drummers. And they were in the Sanctified Church, and there was no trap set. It was shakers, tambourines, and hand clapping from the elders who came over.
Right.
And did you get a chance to see the Holy Rollers, and did you go to the Sanctified Church when you were a boy?
Yeah, I did. But see, a lot of that goes way back to the early slaves. Because where they have what they call the eternal circle.
Talk about it.
And they would get around each other, and they would put their hands upon each other's shoulder, and they would move in a circle. But if they picked the feet up, that was considered dancing. So they would just shuffle the feet. And then they had these old brooms, and they would be doing a sound like this. Let me get this See if I can get you the sound. They were doing this thing right here. With the brooms.
Wow.
And everybody just shuffle. And then they would chant. And that's that rhythm is called Sichi. That's from the west coast of Africa. They came over here through Yoruba with the Spaniards.
What was how do you spell that? What did you say? What was the rhythm?
It's called Sichi. Let me see. I got one of my books here. It's S-H something, Sichi. All my books are over at the school right now. But it come from the west coast of Africa. But it all came up out of Yoruba. Because, see, that's what people don't understand. Like we say kalave, which is ta, 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 ta. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Clock, 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 clock. That's kalave. That means key. There's a 2, 3, and a 3, 2. Well, that came over from Yoruba, the northern part of Africa, when the Spaniards came to, all through the Mediterranean, came up around with Puerto Rico, say a prayer for our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico, and all through the Caribbean, Mexico, and it's called a key. So when the Spaniards came through there, all that came with them. So that rhythm, so when you take kalava, you can pretty much take any song, and you could either put a 3-2 to it or a 2-3. I don't care what it is. It could be a classical piece. It could be jazz, funk, or whatever. So all that music was centered around that. So then when I'm a kid, and I'm going along and I'm hearing, what was that one, Bobby Blue Band, one of them, woke up this morning, that's all African. A shuffle. Chick, 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 chick. That's a 6/8. That still derives from, African type rhythm.
Where does the it's beautifully articulated, but you talked about not picking your feet up, and just can you talk about the language? This is the other part of it, Harold, that is so important, is that in today's modern music, so much of the drumming is very formulaic. It's just you're supposed to just keep time, and yet the drum had a very different significance. Louverture Toussaint he overthrew Napoleon. Napoleon couldn't penetrate Haiti because of the drum. How early did you understand? Was there a moment when you understood the spiritual language of the drum when you were a boy?
When I was young, because I was always playing behind dancers, shaking, snake dancers, belly dancers. If that music was like, what's in there? I think you've heard this. If it don't mean a thing unless it got that swing.
If it don't got that swing, it don't mean a thing. That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Don't mean a thing. Right. So I always, when we were sitting in clubs as kids and in beer bars, and when I first played, I went and got my mother's little eyebrow pencil and painted me a little mustache, and got my father's tie and shirt. They would hang out on my belly, and I'd sneak in these clubs. And when I'd play, I would look to see if I got the people's feet tapping. If they ain't tapping and getting up dancing, that means I ain't got the groove. It ain't happening. Even to this day, I hear people get stuck on, well, it's got to have this tempo, it's got to be that. That don't mean nothing. James Brown was one of the greatest. When I used to be a kid, I'd go down to San Diego, California, or the 5-4 Ballroom up on Broadway in Los Angeles and watch him. He might do Night Train. Do 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 do. And then another night he might go do 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 do, because you gotta feel the people, the energy. A lot of people don't realize, even during Machiavelli's period, the European periods, the drums were used to signal the marching. The men would march when they play a certain kind of roles and stuff. They knew to go, left, go right, go forward, retreat. The drums and the trumpets. Look at the Indians. A lot of people don't realize in the early 1850s, drumming was outlawed in New Orleans because the Europeans came over and they thought they were sending signals, and they didn't know.
Absolutely. No, this is one of the reasons I do my show. But going back, this is so fascinating. I wanted to read you a quote from my interview with Alan Toussaint, rest in peace. He said,
I knew him. That's funny. He seen me last. I didn't even cut you off, but last time, and him and I were together.
Yeah.
We was on a ship, and we signed autographs. He's sitting over to my left, and I like to whistle. And I'm whistling along with the music. He kind of ducked his head out and looked over at me and seen me and started smiling. And that's the last time I seen him.
well, it's okay. I mean, any story about Alan is, and this is what he said though, because you were talking about, you know, cats getting all hung up about it needs to be in this tempo or this, that. And this is what he said to me. He goes, even the tuning of the instrument has changed music. You need a meter.
Right.
Listen to what he says. He goes, you need a meter to get things done. When before you used to read your heart. Some of the stuff that you found out in the tuning is what made you you. After a while, we began to look at a needle. I'm not saying it would be good to play out of tune, but out of tune isn't always out of tune.
Right, it's not, because if it's slightly flat, or, slightly, certain things are slightly off. A lot of times, a lot of people go and they deliberately detune their guitars and stuff.
But
because when you're playing the blues, you got to put a flat in there.
Absolutely, but I mean, like Howard is a perfect example of somebody who grew up with a dad who was a folk blues singer on the railroads. Howard was a bass player, and he had all those rhythms, but he came up with his own tuning. And see, I mean,
I know. Hey, you telling me? I met Howard when him and I was like 14.
No, 10th grade,
I met
man.
him over in
10th
this bar
grade.
down the street from here, and he was playing bass at the time. I used to go over to about a house, and his daddy would be sitting up there on the front porch over in Compton. Howard ain't out of Texas. He was born in San Pedro and straight out of Compton. I used to go on School Street, and I'd go up there, and his daddy would be sitting up on the porch, and we'd come walking up to the porch after rehearsal or something, and he'd look at us and say, "You boys ain't going to never do nothing." I know what he was doing. He was kicking us in the butt. Because he knew if he said that to us, we was going to do everything we could do to show that he was wrong.
But it was also, I mean, you teach today? You're a teacher, professor? Where do you teach at?
Well, what I'm doing now, I'm here in Long Beach, where I grew up at and where I learned. I started a program called 5 Minutes Nonprofit. They gave me 5 minutes, showed me how to hold a pair of drumsticks and a quarter note. And at that time that Kenneth Hines Sr. did that, he had no idea that I was going to be in all these books, and that I was. So now what I'm doing, I've got Ron Hammond, I've got different artists are coming together, and we're going to be teaching the kids, discipline, good citizenship through the art of drumming. Because it takes discipline.
But I also, okay, so this is fascinating. But how do you get them to be comfortable because when the drum machine came in 76, and then younger cats started to copy a machine. Whereas before, you listened to Tony Williams or Mickey Roker or Pete LaRocca or Max Roach, you knew every drummer in jazz, or like you talked about before, Johnny Cash albums, you knew everybody had their own individual sound. How do you get cats to be comfortable in their own skin, having their own heartbeat and their own sound, and not trying to comp somebody else?
Well, what happened to me, it was Foxy John Bennett. He was the first black man to graduate from UCLA with a film degree.
Wow.
He was, matter of fact, there's a movie way back that he gave the money to help to get it going, but he was a buddy of my father's. And one day, him and I was riding around, amongst other things, he taught me, he said, "Harold, one thing, it's okay to learn all these rudiments and all that, but you have got to find, when people listen to your drumming, they can tell it's you.
Right.
You got to have your own thing." And there's a book that's over in my office. It read, and thank God I read from page to page, but I got to a thing that was about the group war, and it's talking about our music. And on the very last paragraph, I hadn't read it, and all the hip-hop producers love that loose, funky sound of Harold Brown.
I love it. But how do you? But I mean, you were doing shake dancers in Tijuana. You were
exactly.
But I'm saying the younger cat. I'm going back to the 5 minute nonprofit. How do you get cats? They don't have the ability. They don't have the ability to play live 5 sets a night, 7 days a week. So where's that?
Well,
yeah.
Well, no, what I'm coming up with a different thing. The Holy Spirit, God brought it to me the other night. And I said, well, I don't want to go in teaching them traditional, because what happens is I go into these music books and I show them how to do paradiddles and long stroke rolls and rat-a-tats and this and that.
Right.
They're going to be stock.
Right.
So I'm going across and I came with a concept. I'm going to go in, and I've got this, bunch of books around me, and I'm going to go in, and I've been going to the shops, going to the music stores, and I'm going to start just finding things like a djembe, clave sticks, cowbell, shaker. And then what I'm going to do, go over to the school, because I can sit up there, and I'll just start playing something on one of the congas. Just something real simple. And then because of the neighborhood we live in, this melting pot, people from Cambodia, people from Mexico, people from Nigeria, everywhere, Ethiopia. The kids are going to start hearing me, then they're going to start coming, and then I'm going to say, hey, can I do that, mister? Can I do that? Can I do that? I say, here, I'll tell you what, why don't you take this clave stick, and this is what I want you to do. Play cla, 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 cla. Can you do that? And then get him one to start playing. Cla, 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 cla. Then he gets that master. I'll be playing congas along there with him. And another kid will say, a little later, a girl come up and say, wow, that sounds great. That makes me, can I do that? Sure, why don't you do the cla, cla, cla. Here, I'm going to teach you something, young man. Now, here's this cowbell pattern. King, kaka, king, kaka, king, kaka. Can you play that? And just start getting them all to become part of part of it, to where each one started getting the idea of these different rhythms in their head. So that at the time where they want to take off, be a percussionist or a drummer, or even a piano player for that matter, they're going to have those rhythms in their head and in their spirit.
I mean, to me, that is what you're doing is you called it. If you just taught them the rudiments, they'd be stock players. But you're talking about, like, that's the beauty of collective African drumming. West African drumming is it sounds so complex, but everybody's playing a different part, and it all fits together like a puzzle. And that's
exactly.
And so you're telling me that this came to you recently? This vision?
Yeah, last Friday night, I was in my here where I can look out over the city where I grew up, and then I was just by myself, me and my dog Zulu. Me and my dog, and all of a sudden it said, Harold, go a different route, because you can go and find all these places where it sound like they're playing for football games, or they're getting ready to go tear up somebody's city, or they're getting ready to start marching down the street. Here come the soldiers. Let's go a different route, because then I get the kids going, and then all of a sudden they all become a part of something instead of one person playing everything. And then they become like each digit on each hand. Each digit on each hand is valuable. We need them, because you remove your thumb, that'd be hard to pick up a glass of water to drink. And each person in a band, that's why War was so, we were blessed to be able to make the hits we made. Because there was no one person that was the greatest in the band. It was a combination of Charles Miller, Papa Diallo, and by the way, his grandkids have been emailing me all morning.
Papa D. I mean, when was the first time that you met Papa D?
I was out in Pomona, California, by the L.A. Fairgrounds. It was 1967, maybe going towards 68. I was up on Gary Avenue and Arrow Highway, and there was a gas station there, Signal gas station. And I went in there to get gas, and there was this man sitting in there while he's getting his oil changed on his Rambler, because he used to like to ride Ramblers, beating on a conga and a bongos at the same time between his legs. I said, wow, that's great. I'm building a band. So him and I started working with, what's his name, that had the Freedom Sounds.
Oh, Wayne Henderson.
Yeah, Wayne Henderson.
Are you kidding me? You were hanging?
Yeah, because Wayne Henderson lived up behind Howard Scott in Compton, off of School Street. That's why it's important. Don't forget where you come from. Hello?
Well, no, but what's so crazy is that in a few hours, I live in Tucson, and I'm going to see this African ensemble with one of my sponsors who's playing saxophone, who grew up in Compton, and Wayne Henderson was a Jehovah's Witness and used to go door to door. And then when he found out that
Papa D was Jehovah's Witness too.
So Papa D, you're talking bongos. Mongo was the
Mongo Santa Maria, I loved him.
You couldn't get away from him in Southern California at that time, but Papa D was like the 1,000-fingered man? I mean, what was amazing? How did he be able to connect on bongos and congas?
Well, now what happened was, Papa D came from the East Coast. And what I've learned since I did my research and stuff, all Latinos, Spanish, that doesn't mean because there's a difference between Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Mexico, Guatemala.
Right.
And so like Tito Puente, I got a chance to play with him a couple of times. Now, he's from back east. They're very up, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very, when you dress up, what do they call it? They're very polite. Their stuff is really like right on.
Yeah.
But then when you came more like New Orleans is loose, more Afro-centric. But then when you go into Southern California, we had that Cuban kind of. We go coom, ka, ka. I had to teach Papa D how to do that.
Right,
because he was too fancy.
Well, he was. So was he from You're talking more like.
He was from the East Coast, like Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay, so but he wasn't up at the Palladium like marinating with But he brought an East Coast flavor, which is a little bit more,
right,
a little more swing, but there was a burning quality. And then you're bringing this Cubano.
Right, I taught him because when we first went in, we did that one. I can't think of this guy. He was a DJ, but I had to teach Papa D, just simple because that was my first instrument. Because I used to make all my own bongos and congas in woodshop, which the kids are missing that now. If we had woodshop, they'd be in there building them themselves. That's another story. But I used to build them, so my first drums and stuff problems.
No, so when you this is the thing. Were you one of those cats that because I know Donald Duck Bailey, who was Jimmy Smith's drummer. He made all his drums in woodshop class too, and you never wanted on a jam session. You never wanted to follow him in the drum because the way all his drums were set up was so funky. He had cigarette ashtrays and all this. What was your rig? What was that setup like? Your first trap set, and did people want to come up after you to play because you had your own thing going on?
Well, my first set of drums. I got them. I seen I went and I traded my violin in for them, got a snare drum, and then I went and a buddy of mine had sold his drums off, and it was like a 24-inch bass drum, them big bass drums.
Sure.
And it had a snare and then a side tom and one big old ride cymbal and hi-hat. I got a picture of it still to this day. And I just went in, and that's what I started with. To get that swing and stuff, I go watch people. I listened to the old 38s and stuff, 78s, and then I would try to emulate what they were doing, and also, by going into the bars and stuff, and it got to a point, I remember I used to sit up and watch Don and Dewey, leaving it all up to you to decide what you're going to do. And when a lot of these blues groups came through, because they had all these jazz swing drummers that was playing with Gerald Bailey or all that stuff, Donald Bailey, whatever, they were swing. And all we needed was that blues, that 2-4, on the 2 and the 4. And they couldn't do it because it was too simple. So a lot of times they'd ask me to come up and I would play the shuffles and the blues. And then Big Mama Thornton, she was a drummer too.
Wow.
A lot of people didn't know that.
No way. I did not know that at all.
No, she's a drummer. And I think that's why she took to me. So I would be around, and I just used to just get a chance to be around all this, really great music. And my parents were wonderful, too, because they went with me on it. They didn't stop me. They 64, I'm right down the street from the school. They gave me Long Beach Poly, where Snoop Dogg come out of, all of us. They gave me a full scholarship to Valparaiso University, and I turned it down to be a musician.
Wow.
And then I had all the guys and everybody go join Local 47 in Hollywood on Vine, and Vince DeVary and those guys that work with Lucille Ball Loved the way I came in there, how we came in organized. And then next thing I knew, in 64, 65, 64, we were the first black band actually booked doing casuals up and down Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset. The Palladium, Whiskey A Go-Go, Gazzari's. We've opened up for like the Righteous Brothers, Ike and Tina Turner. and then we just kept on going and going and going.
But you were the creators at this point?
Yeah, we were the creators.
And who was
we were the creators.
So it was you, Howard Scott, and who else?
It was myself, Howard, George Brown, Bobby Nicholson. He's no longer with us. He was a trumpet player. You had Lonnie Jordan. He's still touring as War. You had Lonnie Jordan, and there may have been a couple other people that may, let's see, who's playing?
What about Dickerson? What about Dickerson?
I think BB was in it.
So, I mean, can you just go back for a minute and talk about how you collaborated with the Crusaders or Wayne Henderson? This is absolutely like, I mean, I interviewed. I mean, Wilt. I've interviewed Wilton and Joe and Wayne. I interviewed them all. Rest in peace. Those cats came from. They brought that Gulf Coast sound from Houston. But you were a Compton cat going to Tijuana. How did you?
Yeah, Long Beach.
How did you connect?
Compton,
how did you connect with
San Pedro?
I'm just curious about your collaboration with the Freedom Sound. How did that work out?
Well, Sylvester Papa D. Allen, he was a Jehovah's Witness, and that was my connection. So at times they needed a drummer and stuff. So Papa D suggested that I be the drummer, and I go with him. One of the players, I forget his name, but I'd go and do some dates with them. It's phenomenal.
Wow, you were playing with the Freedoms. You were playing that.
Yeah,
that
I did
was
a few dates with them.
Oh my!
Yeah.
You were playing jazz.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
No, but there were just so many. When I think about being around Johnny Otis, he was a big influence too for us down here. He was over there, Willie and the Hand Jive. He was a Greek. He actually was Greek for a lot of years. I thought he was Latino, Spanish. I guess Greek and Spanish are about the same.
I mean, but we all know everything started in the motherland. I'm curious about did you know Ndugu Chancellor?
Oh, I met Ndugu. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ndugu. Matter of fact, when we were kids, we went to a drumming thing up in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And they were in the same place. We were both studying drumming, but then I left because they were trying to make me change my style instead of playing the way I played on toe and stuff, the way I played different. And they were trying to get me to change my style because they wanted me to play with that, what was it, Donald, that big band, but I wouldn't change my style. I'm glad I didn't.
Well, he said. I mean, he talked about in high school he was playing drums with Johnny Otis. I mean, that's the other part that's just incredible about this. But we're talking to a master drummer here, a guy who's had a major impact on modern music. I want to put this tune in for you right now, and then we'll come back and break it down. Okay?
Oh yeah, "Slipping in Darkness" is the one. That's the one they wrote me up and put me in a lot of books about.
Well, I mean,
the
there's a deep bag of Harold Brown here, so we'll put this in and see what you think. All right?
Okay.
Jake Feinberg Show brought to you by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona, R. Zach Wagner Jewelers, and Craig Pretzinger of Allstate Insurance. We thank them for their support so we can play gems like that. I don't care how rich you are. We're all going back to Mother. Now this is.
You can take all them special jets and fly all over.
Dude, you are on your way back into that ground. You're going back to Mother Earth. And, this is the thing. The thing that's so beautiful, you're playing these cool riffs on the snare, but also, you are keeping time on the cymbals. You're dancing on that, man.
That's one of the things. That was off our very first album, I think, with Eric. Yeah, we released that about 1970.
Right, that's right.
I was with a phenomenal, guitar player, and that's what he brought up. I never thought about it. He tells me, because I play all in between the music and stuff, and he's a phenomenal. What is this guy's
Come
name?
on, think of his name. This is important.
I got
It's all right. It'll come.
That's
That's what I'm saying. You're talking about playing inside. What is that? How did you?
That's what he told me. Inside. His name, yeah. Woo. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Greg Douglas. Greg Douglas.
Greg Douglas.
He's one. Yeah.
Hey,
he did that Jungle Love.
Well, no, I was going to
He
say.
wrote Jungle Love and all that.
I mean, can you talk about some of the like? Did you have a chance to see Elvin Jones? Did you have a chance? Because these guys were like, they were show drummers, man. Though, if you gave him a set of brushes, Elvin Jones would play brushes. I mean, and he.
Oh yeah, I play with brushes. Oh, I love brushes.
But can you talk about some of the jazz cats? Like, did you see Elvin or Max Roach or Philly Joe?
Well, you know, it was wild. You know, because I would sneak into a lot of clubs and stuff. I probably seen a lot of drummers I didn't really realize I was looking at them and watching them because it was a certain style then when I was coming up. I was blessed to come up at a certain time period in music right there, you know, the late 50s going into the early 60s to where music was shifting from like the swing jazz, and then it was jazz getting ready to go into R&B, rhythm and blues. So I had the gift to being able to, you know, be able to play shuffles and stuff, but then how to use brushes.
Talk about not just using them, but enjoying the ever-living stuff out of playing brushes. Talk about an experience where you played brushes.
Whoa! I tell you what, when it's in a nice, mellow place like down in New Orleans, I've been there, and we're in a small club, and somebody's going into not a blues, but into just a very Dinah Shore kind of song, you know, where it's just gentle. Well, I want to put that in it. And a lot of times, even now, when we're playing, you know, when I'm doing a show with Howard and Lee and, you know, the OGs, a lot of times I may start off, the old geezers.
The old geezers, man. I love it. The OGs, man. I love it.
And when I'm with them, a lot of times I may even start off like a Gypsy Man or something.
Oh, yeah.
I might start off with some, you know, wooden brushes. Because I remember when I used to play when things, people started getting all them amplifiers, they started coming out and they was playing louder, brushes, you couldn't get away with them. So we used to do, and now they make them, we used to get these wooden dials. I'd go to the wood store, you know, to a wood store somewhere, and get these little wooden dials, you know, like way real thin. And then we'd take them and put a gaffer's tape around them, and I'd make those into wooden brushes.
I love it.
And then I started finding Willie Nelson's country and western drummers. We were all doing the same thing.
This is unbelievable. I mean, did you, like, even though when war started, even before Burden got you guys as a backing band, did you wind up as a studio drummer in the same, did you play on sessions like Hal Blaine and Jim Keltner and those cats? Because you said you went to...
I had just, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jake, but
right.
I had just gotten into that realm of playing, you know, in places. Because, one of my buddies, Marshall Lieb, he produced What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love.
Sure.
Okay, so that was one of the breaks. Just before I was down to my last $7, I was looking for a job because I had, you know, my wife and my kids at home.
Wow.
They were about to kick us out of our home. And I was down to my $7, and I went to go find him. This was about 1968, late 67. I pulled off on Sunset Boulevard. I started cruising down Sunset, and I rode by Hollywood High. And I said, darn, I wonder if Mark's, because Liberty Records was right across from Hollywood High. Well, last time I seen Marshall, he had me in the studio recording with him. He would have me doing things like Last Night. You remember that? Well, the drummer couldn't do those rolls. That's me doing those rolls.
Are you kidding me? So you were... Wow. So you were down to your last $7 and
I was down to my $7, so I go looking for him. He wasn't there at Liberty Records, which later on became United Artists Records. I go down, and they said, well, he's down at Jim Head Productions. That's how Deacon Jones wound up in our band. See, Lonnie Jordan can't tell you that. Howard can't tell you. Lee can't. But I went down on Sunset. It was at Doheny Sunset, Jim Head Production, 9,000 building. I'm up in there looking for Marshall Lee. Gas was costing about 28 cents then, 23 cents. You could buy a big old huge burrito for about 80 cents.
Oh, wow. Oh, give me one of those, baby.
So then I go up there in Jim Head Productions. Oh, no, he wasn't there. But then she looked down and looked across the street, and she says, right across the street there in that little White House, it's not there anymore. It's by the Rainbow now, the Rainbow building there. I go over there, and he had married with Frankie Lane's daughter. Marshall Lee married Frankie Lane's daughter. Mule train, ha, giddy up. Married his daughter. I could hear him in the back talking. A little lady sitting behind the desk looking like Lucille Ball hairdo. She said, you can't go back there. I said, I know you want to see me. I know you want to see me. I go back there. Marshall Lee look at me. He says, Harold, wow, I've been thinking about you. What are you doing? Sonny, this is Harold Brown. Harold Brown, this is Sonny Bono. Hello.
Wow.
That's why you don't give up. And then old Sonny Bono, then they had their meeting. They came out, and I said, goodbye, boom. And I go down there to the Art LeBeau studio, which was down there on, Sunset, and I think 103 Crenshaw or something. No, not Crenshaw, La Brea. I go there. I go to walking up there. I'm up there, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call. Timmy Earl, looking for a drummer. I got one of the best. I go towards Beverly Hills, Kings Drive. I go up north. I said, my luck is breaking. I get in there, there's a bunch of guys telling her that they needed cars, they needed amplifier, they needed a bass, they needed that. And I said, I'm not going to leave my crew. I'm not leaving Howard, Lonnie, and these guys for this. When I get back down the hill, I'm going to tell Marshall to call up Timmy Earl and tell her, get rid of those other guys. I got a group ready to go. Because Howard had just gotten back out the military. And we named the group the Night Shift because I had been working in the steel yards to earn a living.
That's right.
At night. So then I get ready to go up the stoop, Art LeBeau studio, of which they tore it down. And there was a little guy sitting there crying, they always take my band away from me. They always take my band. It was R.B. Greaves before he had his first hit record. Knocked 3 times, sent a letter to Maria. Hello.
And that's you on drums.
No, that's not me on drums. But this is where all of a sudden our whole life changed at that moment because I didn't give up. I was persistent. I think that comes from being a distance runner. And I went there, and he says, I got these gigs. I said, what? So I run back over into this. Mom and them always say, keep a dime in your pocket. Now you need a quarter if you can find one. Phone booth. And I went in and I called Howard Scott at that time. I said, Howard, our luck is changing. Get everybody together. We started rehearsing the next day. We put our band together and stuff. That's when we started rehearsing. That's when Deacon Jones came into the group, R.B. Greaves. Hello. And then we wound up playing at the Ragdoll in North Hollywood. And we was at the Ragdoll when Eric Burton came into us. At that time, who was on the bass, I'll tell you exactly everybody that was in the band at that time. It was, let's see, Howard Scott was there, Lee Oscar, Lonnie Jordan, Sylvester Allen, Charles Miller, and Peter Rosen was the bass player. He's the one that kept telling me about Eric Burton. One thing about Charles Miller on that last song that we just listened to, Mother Earth.
Yeah.
That's him playing sax.
Oh, dude, he is. I mean, he's just like he's just breathing and chanting into that thing, man.
Oh yeah, he knows because Charles is 7 years older than me. He was like my big brother because I was, I'm the oldest out of 5 boys, 5 out of 6 kids, and Charles lived about 2 or 3 doors down from me. I drive by his house, the whole house now. I'm right in the neighborhood. And then I seen him, was getting ready to go, be the Night Shift. We was in Hollywood there on Santa Monica and Vine, Studio Instrument Rentals.
SIR, baby, SIR.
That's right. Yeah. That was when they first started. I seen Charles and said, hey, Charles, why don't you come on into the group now? Because the first band I ever played with Charles was Senior Soul back in the day when I was just a kid, but I was too young, so he got another drummer after a few gigs, that could get out easier, and I was still in school and stuff. So they got Charles to come in. I said, Charles, you'll be the perfect, because he studied, he played in a Long Beach Poly marching band, Long Beach City College. I'm right down the street from where me and Charles went to high school. Hello. Never forget where you come from. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so clear in my head. So then Charles came in. We had Jay Contrelli before Eric met us. He was part of the horn section. Jay Contrelli played with the group Love.
Wow.
At that time.
Wow.
He was in that group, right?
Wow.
So we had like we must have had about 3 or 4 horns. We had, all kind of horns and stuff. We were like a 13-piece group at the time. When Eric Burden discovered us and Lee Oscar, I think that was probably about a good thought. I'd have to say it's probably about May, maybe even earlier than that, maybe February or so of '69 at the Ragdoll. And that's when I seen this little skinny guy come up to me with an afro bigger than mine saying, "Can I jam with you? Can I jam with you? I want to play my harmonica. Can I play my harmonica?" It was Lee Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar. Dude, that dude was living. He was living on the streets, dude. What a maniac.
Yeah,
what a maniac.
He was living, sleeping on Eric's couch and stuff. He only had one harmonica left. You wonder why Lee sounds like a brother, because he learned how to speak English. Listen. I want to put in another tune now, and this is for the audience, for the peeps out there listening, or that'll eventually hear this. Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Tupac wanted me on his last album. Tupac wanted me on his last album because of the groove I played on "Slipping in the Darkness."
This is another. Okay, we'll get to that. This is a tune that I want people to understand how to sonically expand the music and not have to play loud and not have to play hard and use the entire kit. Okay, so this is what we're playing this tune for. Harold Brown on the trap set. Here we go.
Now she's gone away. That's what love will do. That's what love will do.
That's what love will do. That's why I'm talking to this cat right here, Harold Brown. That's why I tracked down Howard Scott and Lee Oscar, dude, because you're not playing backbeat, man. You're not playing any backbeat.
No. It's more of a playing inside the music.
Can you describe what inside playing? I mean, I don't. These cats need to understand. You are like able to swing the tune just by the dynamics that you're using on the kit. I mean, you're inside, man. You're playing everything inside. It's so ridiculously hot, and I just want you to talk to cats because I mean, you're not just a timekeeper. You're playing the tune.
Yeah, well, see, a lot of people forget that you're an instrument too. You got to take because it could change the feeling of a song. If I take like even now, sometimes I find I could just use a triangle. I was somewhere and there was some bluegrass, some guys are just up playing,
Right.
A ukulele, and one a banjo, and another one a violin. And one guy just beating on a tambourine. Well, if I just take a triangle and throw it in there, that puts another level on it.
Exactly.
Ding, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ding, ding. And then a lot of textures. You got to think like it, because each part of a drum is an instrument. And it's sort of like in a conversation. If everybody's talking all at the same time, you can't hear a damn thing nobody else is talking about. So each of those drums, I try to give them their place and their opportunity, whether it's a cymbal or sometimes just a little ting can mean something, or a swell. Or if you do a roll on use your mallets on your floor tom. And it gives it a very dramatic feel. And that's what it should be.
It's a tension and release kind of thing. The thing I wanted to also with those vocals from that tune, That's What Love Will Do. Were you guys all in the studio together? I mean, because today music is made in isolation. And you guys were...
Yeah, we were all in there. Woo!
I mean, and you were hitting at the same time. There was no overdubbing.
No let me think about that. I don't think it was much. I know that once we laid it down, the track, we had the rough, so forth, but then the guys would probably go in there, and then BB, who was really, actually, he had the best voice in the band. Mm-hmm. He's a crooner. He's still, everybody said a prayer for him. He's not far from me, but about a year and a half ago or so, he had a stroke. And, and I keep praying, because I go over there and we kick it, and he always keeps upbeat, but it's been tough for him. But say a prayer for him. But
well, you let him. I mean, listen. I mean, Harold. I want to get to all the cats in war. I mean, if he can catch a hang, I'd love to hang with him, man.
Well, we'll see. I try to give his his son and them the be able to say, well, do this, let them.
No, I mean, it's just I just want to lift spirits. I think the thing is that, can you talk about just the idea of all the sounds that you've created in your career and how that relates to nature, Mother Nature, and you see the destruction now of Puerto Rico, and you see the callousness and the response, and to see the suffering and people not caring about people. You have the ethical treatment of animals. You have that organization, but what happened to the ethical treatment of people? And it's not a political thing. I just want to know.
It's not a political thing, but see, you happen to be talking to a historian here.
I know.
One.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. I was ready for Katrina when it hit New Orleans.
You were down. You were down there. Were you down there?
Well, no, I got out of there. But see, I had read a book. One of my professors said they did not want you, and I tell your readers to read it. It's called Rising Tide. Rising Tide. It's the 1927 flood. I suggest you read it.
Yeah.
One of my professors says, here's a book that they don't want you to read, Rising Tide. And then I was the only black guy, and they says, well, why don't they want? And I said, because they don't want us to know. He said, and the professor said, right. Because when they built those levee systems in New Orleans, they already knew there were certain problems. And then when you come up here in California, I used to have people say, why do you want to live down there 6 to 10 feet below sea level? They got the same ones right up here in Sacramento, California. Same people built them.
Wow. Wow.
And then I read Jacob Storm when Galveston got hit in the 1900s. So what I systematically did, I started planning because I got my insurance came from, I forget what the name of the insurance company was, but they were going to cancel my flood insurance. This was about 2001 or so, 2002. I said, oh, really? Well, I only owed about $50,000 on the place at the time. I went and I said, okay, I insured it for $150,000. My equipment, I insured it for about another $25,000, $30,000. And then, because I did my internship, I worked at the Los Angeles Police Department in 1983, 84. I did my internship there because I studied thermomodular nuclear computers.
Wow.
I did my internship at the Los Angeles Police Department.
Wow.
and I learned certain things about storing stuff, right? So, okay, so about 2001, 2002, I started planning for the big one that was going to hit New Orleans. And then I would go around there and people, I felt like Noah. I started building shutters so I wouldn't be putting up plywood because I had experienced it a couple of times where I'd ask my neighbors, somebody to go, and they make like they couldn't hear you. I said, okay, I built me shutters, I open and close.
Hold on, I want to make sure this story. I want to get clear on this story. You have a house in New Orleans, and you also were living in Southern California.
Well, I'm from Southern California.
Right.
At the time, I was living in New Orleans.
So you were living in New Orleans, and you studied. You had this understanding of the rising tides, and 4 years before Katrina, you're the prophet putting shutters on windows.
Right.
Got it.
I had people coming by me, and they look awful country. Excuse me for the lack of a better word. This is what I told them. I said, you can kiss my country black ass. Sorry. Disculpe, señorita.
It's on the way. It's on the way. Yeah.
And so I told them, I was building these shutters. And the old hotel, the Fountain Blue, off of Carrollton right there. I went up, and my son, Daryl, he lives over in Japan. He had a room up there. We had one on the 7th floor. So what I started doing, building, making all my equipment, because I'm not a big man, I started planning. I had all my special equipment stuff on rollers. I always kept the van. I'm still in it. It's 20 years old. But I kept it full of gas. I had planned for the dogs, and everything, and I scanned all my important documents, contracts, everything. So I got with AOL because I had virtual filing cabinets. There was no cloud then.
Right.
Duh.
Right.
And but AOL was the only one where you could store documents. So I'd scan all these documents. I put them up there. All my masters, music that me and Howard and BB did, and Lance, a bunch of guys down south, along with Johnny Vidocq, all these people.
Johnny Vidakovich.
Oh, yeah. He was on my label. Okay, so
yeah.
I just took all this music and stuff, and everything that I could get a hold of, I had them transferred to portable hard drives, and I took all my masters and stuff, stored them up on the 7th floor, away from any pipes or anything. All my documents. And then when I felt that was coming, I was with Bruce Sunfire Barnes. He just, he's an amazing musician. If you don't know about him, Google him. But him and I, that Friday night, I looked at it and said, we better watch this one. And then we started preparing. And then all of a sudden, that was that Saturday, Friday night, Saturday. A buddy of mine, Jim Kipito, a few days before that, he was at the hospital. He didn't make it through it. A buddy of mine, but he didn't make it through it. But I got there, and I had all food for my dogs. I had all the grandkids, everybody covered and everything. It was that Sunday night. My former spouse, she kept telling me, "Oh, we don't have to leave," because I learned that people panic in different ways. I'd read a book about, it was World War II, and people showed a different way. When the Blitzkrieg was coming, a lot of people would start cleaning up around their house, doing dumb stuff.
Right.
And people would have heart attacks.
Right. They were that was their version of panicking. Yeah, absolutely.
Panic.
Yeah, right.
So I realized my former spouse, me, she went off. She was supposed to meet with her folks, but yet the Port Authorities and St. Paul Lutheran, everybody called me asking me what to do. She come back, she'd have bought some new pair of shoes, and she had a closet full of shoes. I said, whoa, hold up.
Oh, man.
You're going to get ready. And then she started going, I grabbed her little arm and said, I love you get on over there now. And then when I knew she wouldn't leave without her granddaughter, so I got the granddaughter and everybody. She had a little nice Gucci purse on the ground. She said, "Don't let my Gucci on the ground." I said, "I hope it floats." I got all the kids, all my dogs and everything. We cruised on out. I saw people stuck on the side of the road. There was no traffic. Got them to Houston and got there, and it was the DoubleTree. I give a shout out to them. They took me, my grandkids, and the dogs, and I got there, and I still had a half a tank of gas. See, people always think it happens to the other person. Wake up. Wake up.
Yeah, I did.
Stay prepared.
I did. So so wait, you had a 7-story house, and you put it on all the stuff.
Well, it was a 7-story, the old Fontainebleau Hotel on Fontainebleau and Tulane or something, one of those streets down there.
But I'm saying you took all your family, but you left all the documents there because
up there on the 7th floor. And then I took everybody, and I took the family and took them completely out of New Orleans.
Wow.
And took them to Houston.
So then it hit, so you got hooked up at the DoubleTree and you prepared, and then you see.
And then I wanted to fix my van. The air conditioner went out. I'm at the Ford agency. I'm a Ford man. I drive Ford. I wanted to fix it. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, they were getting ready to replace it, and the levee system broke. That was a Monday morning. And I looked at them and said, "Stop, don't do the work. Look like I'm going to not be able to go back to New Orleans anyway soon." And then that's when they all got together. Big shout out to them. They said, "You buy the part, we're going to install it for free." And then that's when, after a couple of days, I went back in with some of my brothers from the fire department, and then they made me an officer, and they put me on the ship, the Port Authorities, New Orleans Port Authorities, Gary LaGrange, a lot of my buddies there. And then I stayed on the ship. I had a crank radio and all my survival stuff, and our crew is the ones that went and rescued Fats Domino. Hello.
Whoa. Well,
so I took Howard and Lee, and then when they finally got there after the water went down, I took them around, let them see Fats Domino's house, how everything was all messed up and so forth.
That is so I just want to be clear. You dropped your family off in Houston and then drove back to New Orleans.
Right. I went back with some of my buddies from the fire department. We sat up there on Highway 10 overlooking Canal Street. When I looked straight out towards the French Quarter, towards the river, I could look up and I could see where people thought that they could go up a vertical, get out of the way, where they got blown out the top down to the ground. I could see all those Blackwater men and stuff with their vests, with their guns and stuff. I was with my buddies with the police department, and I looked over there to see the Sanger Theater,
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd turn around and look back towards the lake, look back west, and it was water as far as I could see.
So I just want to be clear. Katrina hit, and then you drove back, or you were there for that?
Right. After, yeah.
Wow.
And right after the levee system broke, I went back.
And where was your house living in the war? Was Fats Domino living in the wards?
Oh yeah, we had like 6 feet of water in our place. We were 3 feet off the ground already. We were 3 feet because they built them up on piers,
Wow.
and they're like 3 feet on the average off the ground. And it was still 3 feet of water, so it was like on the average of 6 feet there. Some parts of the city had close to 10 feet.
And the bottom line is that with all the devastation, the Fontainebleau Hotel preserved your documents?
Yeah, all my documents, everything. Even when I went and we had to go after our royalties from Jerry Goldstein and File Productions, all the attorneys that went to collect all of our past due mechanical royalties for our their own performances and so forth. They'd ask me that, how did you do it? Well, it's best to learn from other people's mistake, not from your own. You want to know how to make a cake, you know how to make it, get a book.
But if you want to play drums, you just got to play what you feel from your heart. I mean, there's too much information out there. Listen, Harold, can we do part 2 in a couple weeks? I would love to continue this conversation. I mean, I'm having a ball.
Well, you know, we just have to see if we can roll it over, you know, and see if we can do it. But I'm more than just a drummer. See, that, you know, I'm a lot more than just a drummer, because when IBM sent me to college, they found out musicians and accountants made the best programmers.
Well,
Leave you with that.
No, I mean, listen, and I also want to tell you, when you start to cook the groove on this new program, and you're getting the melting pot in there, I want to come out and do some Facebook Live video of it, because I want it to spread around the world and be inspiring for peeps, man. I'm in Tucson. Long Beach, not that far away.
Well, I'm telling you, that's what we got to do. We got to get out. We can't just complain about what the kids are doing and how society is unless we get out there and make a positive change.
Harold Brown will be in touch, man. I look forward to continuing the dialogue. It was such an honor to connect with you, man.
It is a pleasure. You just have all the listeners out there, just have a blessed day. And remember, do the right thing.
Keep swinging, brother. Much love to you.
All right.
Later on.
Later on.
Bye. Heavy day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. We heard from Rusty Young from Poco, Marty Rifkin, and the great drummer Harold Brown. We'll be back next week with a whole bunch of other guests. Until then, peace.
Have the answer to all of your hang-ups, but we won't tell you, 'cause if we did, you just would not believe us, so